Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
It is time to talk nitrogen stabilizers. Again, we have been able to provide a lot of value to our listeners due to these conversations that we've had in partnership with Corteva. I am excited here to introduce you, Andrew Lozum. Luzum? Man, it's like I purposely got that wrong, even though you just told me that. I even wrote it on there for pronunciation-wise, but you've got a Norwegian background, you said.
Yeah, Decorah is where I grew up, so northeast Iowa. My family still kind of farms a diverse livestock farm there, and I get home and help them when I can. But my wife and I now live in southeast Iowa, so Mediapolis, on her family farm, actually. So
that's really cool. It's nice to have multi-generational operations to be able to reflect back on, too, because what's your role at Corteva?
Yeah, so I'm a nutrient maximizer, strategic account manager. So what I do every day basically is handle our nutrient products. So we've got a biological nutrition, and then N-Serve and Instinct would be the main two, and then Pinnet Max. And I cover all of southern Iowa, and then I also kind of wheel in Illinois quite a bit as well.
So as we sit here at Commodity Classic, it seems like a lot of the general sessions and a lot of the booths are focused around the sustainability efforts in agriculture. So how do stabilizers pull into environmental benefits for our producers?
Yeah, so I think it's the hard part, right, is because as a producer, we look at what's a return on investment, right? That's our biggest concern. Not only do these products bring that, but they bring this environmental component. And, I think as we look at where we sit today and in the future, in 2025, the EPA has this nutrient reduction goal, and 25 is our benchmark. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, this environmental aspects are becoming more of a forefront. Even though these products have been around for 40 years and we've been talking about the environmental benefits, they're now more real today to producers, right? And so when we talk about N-Serve and Instinct, they bring a 16% leachate reduction when we use the products and a 51% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So, truly big, impactful numbers, right? So, and guys say, okay, what does that mean, right? Well, we talk about, that reduction in nitrogen. It's 21 million pounds that we keep from going down our waterways last year.
That's a big number.
Huge.
That certainly plays an effort there as well. So the other interesting part that as I've gotten to meet and talk to more of the Corteva reps, you guys focus a lot on the 4 R's of nutrient stewardship. Now, it's a test for you. Do you know what those 4 R's are?
Right place, right rate, right time, right source of product.
Yeah, and this is what nitrogen stabilizers can help, is all 4 of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's extremely beneficial to our producers, not only for their pocketbooks when you talk ROI, but also for what we need to do as stewards of the environment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of neat to see what product development can come about, because as we continue to structure agriculture around what the consumer demands are, what Mother Nature's demands are, it's kind of neat to see how a lot of focus comes around the air and water quality issues.
Exactly. And I think about it a couple different ways as well, right? So farm a little bit on the side, and I look at, now that I've got a son that's 9 months old, you talk about multi-generational. We don't want to get ourselves into a point of regulation that we can't make decisions on our own farms to be profitable into the future, right? And so that ROI piece is huge, but with that environmental piece, we have to show to our consumers that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, right? And that we know what we're doing and we're making the right calls, right? We're not just wasting inputs.
Correct. We've interviewed a lot of farmers, and we had one most recently tell us that his definition of sustainable is making sure that his farm is there next year for him to farm again. He wants to continue to take care of the environment, manage water quality, air quality, and put all those factors together. So he's probably the perfect target for products like NextGen and Instinct. Remind our listeners what makes those different than compared to the marketplace of other products.
Yeah, so when you look at the marketplace of these products, there's about 5 different types of active ingredients that are sold. Everything is sold in a different formulation or blend, and it's a lot of marketing. But those active ingredients have been around for 40 years. Nothing's really changed in a 40-year time period. And so what makes nitropyrin different, it is not water soluble like a lot of the other products. So it's not leaching through the profile with your nitrogen, right? It is truly staying there. And then from a use rate perspective, is that you are getting So we're not killing those bacteria, we're putting them in a form of stasis, right? But for what you're getting at an active ingredient level, you're getting 6 to 8 weeks stabilization that you're not getting out of those other products. And so there's a lot of misconceptions around it, but when you truly break out those active ingredients and know what you're buying, Instinct and NextGen and N-Serve are truly giving you that 6 to 8 weeks of protection, which is longer than any of these competitive products.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of independent studies to make sure that the statistics you share and the promotions that you provide are accurate.
100%. So we've got white paper research that supports all of those documents or underlying documents. There's only basically 3 products with an EPA label. 2 of those are ours, and then there's 2 active ingredients that are basically supported by third parties, right? So universities, et cetera. And those are basically nitropyrin and DCD is the other one. And that's where, like I said, our true differentiation comes from.
I was going to say, that's a pretty big deal to have 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of the years of experience together as your team continues to improve these products and push them forward. But as we get here in the spring and we have these discussions about our nitrogen application options, can we use Instinct and NextGen in a side dress format?
Yeah, we can. So actually, we just did some Purdue data this last year with them. And one of the applications that actually turned out the best out of their data set was split application nitrogen, so like 80 pounds of UAN down, followed by 80 pounds side dress. And they actually split their Instinct NextGen application, 12 ounces followed by 12 ounces. So they're still at that 24-ounce total use rate, but just split. And it does truly bulletproof it and break it out. So we like to talk about when we use, more of that 12 ounces, you're talking to like 4 weeks of stabilization. But even in a side dress application, corn's really not using that much nitrogen until tassel and after,
Correct.
right? We need it at grain fill. So we're not buying ourselves as long of a window, but it's still giving us 4 weeks of pretty pure protection there, right? Because you even look at side dress time frame, our heaviest rainfall months, state of Iowa, is May and June. So we still have to bridge ourselves out of that gap to make sure that we're keeping our nitrogen where we need it.
And that's important because I know as we've gone through a couple of dry years in the Midwest, when you can get into the field, it seems like any time until all of a sudden you get all the rain at one time.
Exactly.
And that typically comes during side dress season when
you need to make a post application of a herbicide and you need your nitrogen to be out there and you can't get there. Yeah.
So it's nice to know that this is a tool in the tool belt that potentially allows you to go when ground conditions are appropriate and you can buy yourself the window to match it up for the maturity of your crop.
Yeah, and the data would show in a lot of cases, right, of guys that are putting nitrogen out 3 different applications, really by using like Instinct or N-Serve, you can actually, in theory, cut out one of those applications, which the benefit there is you're stabilizing that nitrogen so it's in the root zone when you need it, but don't get yourself pigeonholed that you can't get your nitrogen out there when you do need it, right? Yeah. So make those applications when the soils are fit and make them happen.
Because we know that all nitrogen is susceptible to loss. Yeah. And we're just trying to mitigate the amount of loss that happens.
Or how fast it happens, right? Good. If we can slow that down, if we can keep that ammonia in the soil, corn plant's going to be able to use it later.
So as you continue to talk about the benefits of applying nitrogen via side dress, it gives you a lot of in-season control. You're able to monitor your weathering conditions. But when you split these applications, based upon that research, what other value has the producer seen?
Yeah, so yield is by far probably the biggest, right? But I still come back and say test weight as well. Mm-hmm. These hybrids today are really nitrogen efficient, but they need it late. And so by using those stabilizers, it just helps us buy that time period to where we can really use it late. So the energy use efficiency, really, we've gotten ourselves down, which is a nice environmental talking point, right?
Absolutely.
The progressive guys are half a pound of nitrogen at some points, right?
So when you talk Instinct and NextGen, does it matter for soil types? Are we able to do it in heavy soil and sandy soils?
Yeah, so we use them in different soil types. The key around those is there are guys that will variable rate it and go a little heavier rates on those really heavy wet soil types because they know that there's more loss potential present on those acres. But so guys are variable rating it. We are unique versus like some competitive products because we do talk about it treating on a soil on an acre level versus, we're not necessarily treating the fertilizer, right? We're applying with the fertilizer, but we're not treating with the fertilizer. We're treating that soil, that acre level.
Yeah, that's a good point. And remind our listeners what application types, what nitrogen forms do these products work well with?
Yep. So N-Serve is for anhydrous ammonia. Instinct is for UAN, urea, and manure are the most heavily used ones.
Yeah, because I remember learning about the manure side of things, and that was a little bit of a surprise to me, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at finishing manure or hog manure, really hog manure is as good as anhydrous ammonia when you look at total pounds of N applied on an acre level. And so there's a lot of nitrogen out there in the ammonium form that can be stabilized. I think a lot of guys just kind of write it off because it is that free form of nitrogen, right? But there's a lot of opportunity to stabilize that nitrogen and still get crop utilization out of it.
Now, is there a difference as we look at the upcoming season if it's a dry year versus a wet year, or is it still the same types of benefits?
So same types of benefits. I would say, if anything, that we've been talking a lot about, coming up to even the show here, is the fact that, you look at our winter. We had, a lot of guys use a lot of anhydrous last fall. It was very reasonably priced nitrogen. It went out in beautiful soil conditions, and then we never really froze. I mean, my house specifically in southeast Iowa, we had 2 foot of snow, and we never put any frost in the ground this winter. And so we've had this really mild winter that's actually probably setting us up to lose some nitrogen this spring. And then on top of it, we've been relatively dry, but, we have some big rainfalls. We could flush a lot of nitrogen this spring, which puts us up into a situation, right? I think we're looking at low commodity prices. We're all looking at we need bushels. And so knowing that, at least we can make sure we're trying to manage ourselves going into spring, into side dress time frame, what our nitrogen applications need to look like.
So I appreciate you sharing all the information with our listeners today, but if they want to dive deeper for themselves, how best do they do that?
Yeah, they can reach out to their local Corteva representative, or you can go to nitrogenstabilizers.com, and that'll get you to all of our products as well.